12, 2. You'll hear that. All right, guys, we got our man Jason Harwood with us today. I'm going to talk about happier habits. So 3, 2, 1. All right, my man Jason. I tell you what, this is perfect timing. I think it's the beginning of the year. People are always talking about these new habits that they want, and I got to imagine the fact that we're talking about happier habits. There's probably a story behind that, and I would love for you to walk us through. Why is it not just habits? Why do you specialize in helping people create happier habits?
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that question. The difficult reality is that human nature is that we almost always change when we experience pain. Some people are gifted enough to make change in their life based off of like hope for better, but more often we're driven on experiences of pain. And the same was true for me. I've spent 15 years helping people grow businesses, grow in their personal life, develop. And what I experienced as I got into my kind of mid 40s was this weird thing where everything I had wanted in my 20s and 30s, like I had it. I had a house. We drive nice cars. We live in a nice neighborhood in a nice community. I mean, we live in Idaho, but that's okay. That's all right.
Dude, Idaho's gorgeous, man. Are you kidding me?
It is
great.
Yeah, it would be hard to think of something that I wanted that I like kind of didn't have. We go on family vacations and everything. And that was everything I wanted. In fact, I recently saw a sign in a restaurant and I took a picture of it and it said, "I can still remember the days I prayed for all that I have now." And I was like, that was me in my 20s and 30s. The problem was I was miserable. Like I'd wake up many mornings and just have this feeling of like, I do not want to go through this day. And that thought would hit me like as soon as I woke up is, oh my gosh, I don't want to do today. And I thought, wait a minute, I'm like in a good relationship, family, all of that. Why am I so miserable? And I had done a lot of study around habits. And so I thought, okay, I can apply the same lessons around creating business systems and health and financial habits to intentionally creating a happier, more fulfilled life. And so kind of out of that dark time in my life, I just thought, nope, I'm not going to, I'm only in my mid 40s. I'm not going to live this way for 40 more years. And so with kind of the same intentionality as I had put into building my career, going through educational pursuits, getting all of the worldly things that I had, I try to be now as intentional in my happiness and those pursuits.
Well, I'd love to have you talk a little bit about your former life. You were a high school teacher, which I've got a brother that's a high school teacher, and I know that he absolutely loves it. I get to run into a lot of his students when they graduate or they're working jobs and they recognize me and they're like, well, there's some type of a connection. Tell me who you are. And then once they know that I'm my brother's older brother there, they just absolutely love what he did. And I got to imagine that you really enjoyed what you were doing, but it also wasn't completing you. You're a father of 7. And you wanted to enhance your life. You wanted to provide more for your family. I'd love for you to maybe talk about like what that transition was like. Why did you leave a career? Maybe you didn't like it. Maybe you did. And you followed these dreams that, quite honestly, just like you said, a lot of people just won't do that.
Yeah. Oh, I loved teaching. Loved it. And probably the last name gives you away too. Are there a lot of Kalinowskis running around?
No, well, there are in the state of Wyoming. I will tell you that. Other than that, no, you're right. And by the way, you killed it on the last name. That's awesome.
Did I?
So you are a teacher. You've done that.
Oh my gosh, roll the first day of class. I guess I shouldn't make fun of Idaho, right? Because probably if people had to identify a place less ideal than Idaho, they might pick Wyoming, unless you're up, Jackson Hole, Yellowstone area.
Yeah.
That's
And you know
beautiful.
what? We have no problem with that too, because it keeps us nice and densely populated.
Yes, yes. But it is weird because I loved teaching. The difficulty is, teaching financially it didn't match the lifestyle, right? Of being the sole provider for a family. And oftentimes, man, we have to make some of those incredibly difficult trade-offs of this is something that I love, but because of circumstances or lifestyle or whatever, I can't always chase what I love. I joke around with my kids because I have a couple of kids. I have two seniors right now. And so they're looking at college and stuff. And I tell them my first major was theater because I loved theater, loved it, did it in high school, did a little bit in college. And I told my daughter the other day, I said, sadly, life just kind of pushed it out. As soon as you realize like you're not making a living as an actor, likely. And there is so much time necessary if you're just going to do it for fun on the side. But that's what we do is we make all of these really difficult decisions. And you eventually have to just start eliminating some things out of your life. And I think sometimes that's where we end up unhappy in our kind of 30s and 40s is because we've made these difficult decisions, maybe compromises, where we've said, nope, I got to provide for my family. I've got to, financially, I've got to make it work. I want to have the nice car. I want to have the nice house. And then you get to a point where you're like, oh my gosh, but I should probably be happy too.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to go back to teaching if I could, but I'm like, well, now that ship has sailed because could never afford to go back. But I'm fine with that decision now. But you start to look and say, okay, in the current environment that I'm in, what are the things that are critically important to me? What are attributes? What are character traits? What are growth opportunities that are really important? And how can I be intentional about accomplishing some of those things?
Yeah, you said a lot right there, and I couldn't help as you were just talking about that. As like as we grow older, we often chase the things that we wanted, right? And we never take time to reflect on making sure that those are the things that we want right now. And I tell this story often. I've said it to a lot of the people that are in our business about my daughter. One morning as we were on Christmas break, she and I were having a little breakfast, and I was getting ready to go into my daily routine, which one of them is going into the ice barrel. And I was not excited about it. It was absolutely freezing cold in our garage. And she just looked at me and she says, you chose that. And she's 8 years old, right? And just like this wisdom that came from that. And it was such a great reminder of what you were talking about, is that oftentimes we choose these things to either pursue or to put in our life, and how important it is for us to make sure that those are things that we still want, right? Maybe the old us wanted it, but the new us doesn't want that anymore. And obviously it sounds like you were able to make that transition. And obviously that's what you continue to do nowadays, is help small businesses make sure that they're chasing these things that they want.
Yeah. That's where we get caught up is we often get caught in the momentum of life without really taking time to consistently identify, like, I started down this path, but is the momentum of this path still taking me where I want to go?
Yeah.
I am fascinated. I take a freezing cold shower, as cold as I can get the water, every single morning. I've been pretty unsuccessful in convincing anybody else that that's a good idea, but sounds like you're on board with.
Yeah. Well,
cold.
There's such a great thing for that, not only with your mental fortitude, but obviously for the physical ailments that you can suffer for as you get older. There's also a huge benefit for that as well too. So, and I just love the fact that you're doing something hard first thing in the morning. I love the fact that you're tackling something hard. It makes those other decisions that you have to make that are hard throughout the day a little bit easier to take on when you are having to convince yourself to do something uncomfortable as soon
Yeah.
as daybreak happens. So, well, one of the things I'd love to get into is that, this idea of making habits fun, I think it's great. I think it's brilliant. But you've got a systematic approach to it. So I'd love for you to maybe share with our audience some of the tools, the tactics, maybe even the techniques that you use to help the people that work with you be able to identify habits, make them joyful, make them fun, so they can stay consistent in their life and they can really start to see the benefits of it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. The first key is my son, he's 20. He asked me the other day, he said, okay, Dad, what's the habit you think I should start? And I said, well, that's not even the question. The question is what's most important to you? Identify what's most important to you, and then I'll help you create some habits in those areas. So that was the first thing for me, as I was in kind of a place where I wasn't happy with my life. I was consistently feeling unfulfilled. I had to identify when are times in my life when I felt growth, happiness, joy, and pick some of those things. So for me, it was things like learning. I love to learn and read, but I slipped out of doing it consistently. I'm most happy when I'm helping or being generous in some way to somebody else, but I was never intentional. Like if I had an opportunity to help somebody, I would, but I wasn't probably as intentional as I needed to be. So that's the first thing, is identify a couple areas where you think I'm happy when I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And, even a little hobby, like I just kind of love woodworking. I'm not good at it. Like I'm pretty bad, but I just started looking up little videos on YouTube of tables, and I go out and build a little table and then tend to sell it on like Facebook Marketplace to otherwise my garage would be full of tables, but I don't do it for anything other than I enjoy it. But the problem that most of us run into is we hit into walls of motivation and intention, where we want to really feel motivated to do something. And so in moments of pain and these times of great earnestness, where we say, I'm really going to make a change, we feel highly motivated. And so we take on a big task, but we can't maintain the motivation necessary to keep that going. And so the first rule of all habits is to make the habit as small as possible. Because your first real goal is not results. Your first real goal is just consistency. It's okay if I don't see significant results when I go work out, as long as I get into a pattern of working out every single day. If I could get into a pattern of working out even 5 times a week, results would come as I kind of expanded the habit. But the first thing I have to do is build consistency, and that builds momentum rather than relying on motivation. If we say, I'm going to go running for 30 minutes a day, you got to be really motivated, especially in, Idaho, when you wake up and it's 21 degrees outside, and you got to have a high level of motivation. But if you just say, I'm going to do 5 air squats and 10 modified push-ups every morning, you can do that even on low motivation. So take the task. My habit for reading is 1 page a day. If I read 1 page a day, I'm like, boom, I've got my habit done. I will often read much more than that. But if I get my 1 page in, okay, I've done my reading habit for the day. So make it small and then make it as easy as possible. So I keep my book right on my desk, so that even if I only have a spare minute in between 2 tasks, I can grab my book. It takes no motivation. I can just read for 1 page, and then boom, I've done it. And the third one is kind of interesting because people struggle with this one. Despite the fact it's the easiest of the 3 things to do, people struggle because of self-consciousness. But the third one is to celebrate small wins. So I'll read my 1 page and I'll give myself a little fist pump. Yes, I did it. Because this is the happier side of habits. This is when you do that, biologically, it actually releases dopamine in your brain. Dopamine is the feel-good chemical. And you've just done something that's important to you. You celebrate it. You kind of get this double hit of dopamine, and your brain says, yeah, we should do that again. And so you can dramatically increase your consistency and reduce the amount of time necessary to implement a new habit by making it small, making it easier by changing the environment. There's also a tactic called habit stacking that's very popular and very effective. And then celebrate those small wins as you do. And so you can really become systematic. There's more science to it than art, really, of being intentional around some of these things. And the results can actually come quite quickly.
You know, you said, I want to go back to, I think it was number 2 that you were talking about, because I've listened to a number of podcasts with the gentleman that created Atomic Habits. And one of the things that I've always kind of had a little bit of a challenge with, in which I imagine a lot of your clients have had challenges with, I'm sure that you deal with a lot of like high achievers, drivers, but they're just looking for maybe putting more habits into their life that are actually joyful, as opposed to the painful ones, or the ones that you're like, oh, I got to do this because, you know, that's what top performers do, or that's what drivers do, or that's what people that are successful do, right? One of the things you said that it just kind of clicked with me was, even though that the idea of creating a habit is that you have to start extremely small, like 1 page of reading a day, it doesn't mean that you have to stop at 1 page a day, right? It doesn't mean, and I think that's the disconnect that I know that I just had until you said that, where you just admitted that, hey, listen, my habit is 1 page a day, even though oftentimes, most of the time, I'll read many more pages than that. And I think that is such a clarifying moment that people need to really listen to, is that even if just because the habit starts small doesn't mean that you have to keep it there. I mean, obviously the end goal is to create it as a much larger goal, right? Don't just show up to the gym and walk in the door and then walk back out to your car and say that you go to the gym every day. You know, you eventually want to get there where you're actually working out and on the treadmill and doing these things. And so I really love that you hit that point of, hey, just because it started small, or just because it is small, doesn't mean you have to stay there. You can absolutely always do more if necessary.
Yeah. This is that motivation thing. Because if I said, I want to read for 30 minutes a day, like I'm stressed out all day long trying to find a 30-minute window where I can read. And now, instead of reading being a joyful, positive thing, reading is nothing but stress.
Yeah.
And then it's the end of the day and I'm tired and I don't want to do it. And so I just say, you know what, I'm too tired to read for 30 minutes tonight. And I go to bed and I feel defeated. And the momentum is moving me towards not doing it.
Right.
And tomorrow it's even less likely. But in that same scenario, if I just read my 1 page and I go, hey, I did it.
Yeah.
But what often happens is you read that 1 page and then you just keep going. And that's so true in so many areas. I love, one of my favorite quotes from Mel Robbins is, she says, we act our way into feeling, we don't feel our way into acting. That as soon as you I've done some running in my life and people are like, oh, I hate running, you know, running sucks. And I'm like, yes, it does. Like, it's like the first mile is almost always painful. Now I'm old, my knees hurt, my ankles hurt. I tweaked my knee playing basketball a year ago. It still hurts. Like, I'm too old for this. You until you get into the flow of it. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, why don't I do this every single day? Like mile 2, 3, you're like, I love this. And you get done and you feel great. And then the next day you're like, I don't want to run again.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start doing it, the feeling comes, the momentum builds. And so you're more likely to stay consistent with it. So it's kind of like tricking your mind a little bit to say, I just got to read 1 page. And then you read 1 page and next thing you know, you've read 20. I just need to put my workout clothes on. And then you got your workout clothes on. You're like, well, I guess I might as well do 5 minutes on the exercise bike. By 5 minutes, you're feeling good. And you're like, okay, I'm going to go for 15. And so it does build. But it's weird what happens to us mentally. If you set out to say, I'm going to work out for 30 minutes a day, it's almost guaranteed to hit a momentum wall at some point. And you'll run out of motivation for it.
Yeah. And I think that honestly, as you were saying that, one of the things that, as I was thinking about that, like 30 minutes, it's like, well, you're better off not even starting, right? It's not like, well, I'll just only do 5 minutes, or I'll already do 10 minutes, because in your mind, you're like, well, I've already failed. So I might as well not even start, because I can't figure out a half an hour. It's just like a workout, right? I don't have a half an hour. Yeah, but do you have 5 minutes? Do you have 10 minutes, right? And if you can keep those goals small in that aspect, then at least you can do it consistently every day. And once again, you can continue to build off of it, and it becomes more of a discipline in your life. I would love to just dive really quick into New Year's resolutions, because we're at that beginning of the year and the aspect. And, over the years, one of the things that I've had a problem with is people that have kind of debunked New Year's resolutions. Now, I know that 50% of people fall off in 30 days. And after another 30 days, another 50% of those people fall off. And so it's just really like minuscule how many people actually follow through with their New Year's resolutions. But I'm a person that believes that, whatever motivation you need to start, use that motivation. And if it's a New Year's resolution, then put it on your plate and actually do it. I'd love to get your opinion on New Year's resolutions and how people maybe either tackle it, face it, or how they find success from it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hear a lot, people say that they're not real good at being consistent. I'm just not good at being consistent. And I always say, no, you're actually incredibly skilled at being consistent. The thing you're not good at is change. We are incredibly consistent creatures. We do almost the exact same thing every day. Like, it's remarkable. My kids complain about it all the time. They're like, we only eat the same 5 things on rotation for dinner, right? It's like, how are we having chicken tonight? So the challenge is we want to make change, but we don't create the circumstances and particularly the environment to lead us to change. So we set a New Year's resolution. I want to read more. If you wanted to read more, the fastest way to do that is take the batteries out of your TV remote and put them in a drawer and put your book on the end table. Because if you sit down and the environment says, I got to get up, walk over there, get batteries, put it in my remote to turn on the TV, or I can just reach over here and grab my book, you're more likely to grab the book. Now, phones blow that whole thing out of the water, because phones are the killer of all, positive intention. But that's the thing, is we have to start controlling more of the aspects. We have to control the environment. We have to set the proper expectations, maybe even bring in some social influence. There's a lot of value in having some positive people around you who are going to support and encourage you in these ideals. There's great value in little reward systems like celebrating. I love a checklist, because just the power of checking off a box is incredible, right? And so we want to change, and we have the intention to do it, but we don't take the scientific approach to craft our lives in such a way to make it a little bit easier. And so what happens is that we fall back into the same exact patterns, because our environment is currently set up for you to do everything you're currently doing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Atomic Habits. There's a great quote, and I was kind of surprised when I found it. It's by a guy named Archilochus, who was like a Greek philosopher, like hundreds of years ago. He said, we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. And I was kind of surprised, because I remember having read in Atomic Habits by James Clear, where he says we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our habits. And I thought, oh, he just, kind of modernized that saying, but that's true. You can set all the goals you want, but if you don't craft the habits around achievement of the goal, you won't make any progress, because your life is currently kind of formatted exactly the way it is now. Anytime you want to change, you have to start changing format of your life. And that's a bit more difficult. But as soon as you do it, change becomes an easier process.
Yeah, I think that phrase that that quote that you talked about has actually been, I think, remade a couple different times. I know that Tony Robbins talks about you'll fall to the level of your standards, right?
Yeah.
And it's absolutely so true. Well, one of the things that you do to help small businesses and help people in general is that you actually have a mastermind as well too, the Happier
Yeah.
Habit Mastermind. And I love one of the things you talked about in there is that you have what's called a celebration circle. And it just goes back to, creating those endorphins, celebrating the small wins, celebrating the bigger victories as well too. We have to do both of those. Tell us a little bit about that and how can people participate in it?
Yeah. So it's a group of particularly small business owners, but anybody who wants to create more successful habits.
Mhm.
And we just have a group and we call it the Celebration Circle. I like to think of it as the people who, if you do something great and you send them the GIF of you like celebrating, you text that to them, they're going to text you back a celebration GIF. Like who is that person who's going to celebrate right along with you? And so it creates a little bit of responsibility and accountability to where, when you're in the mastermind, we identify the areas where you're going to focus, the habits that you're going to create, and then you get an opportunity to come back and kind of report back in. And as soon as you have to report back into a group of your peers, it immediately changes behavior. And so there's information on it at my website, thejasonharwood.com, or on LinkedIn, Jason Harwood there as well. So
I got to imagine, Jason, also that it's maybe a little bit hard for entrepreneurs, business owners, people in general to celebrate or to think of the things that they should be celebrating, because they don't recognize the small achievements. So I got to imagine that celebration circle is really, really good for them to really think about, well, what was the win today? What was the thing that I should be celebrating? What are the things that I should let people know that are important to me that I should be joyful over? So I think it's awesome that you have created that in that circle of trust for people.
Yeah, it's remarkable the change that happens almost immediately, just getting around people who will celebrate with you.
Yeah, love it. Now I know that you're on Instagram as well too, so people need to follow you on that. And Jay, this has been fun to talk to you. I love habits. I love discipline. I love motivation. I love going for goals. So it's always fun to talk to somebody that's like-minded. As we end the show today, I'd love to just give you the mic and allow you to pour into those that are listening. And we've got a lot of people that are business owners that are just fighting the daily fight. They're just grinding through some of the hardest parts of their business. Maybe it's because the industry is in disruption. Maybe it's because the economy is not where it wants to be, or maybe the economy is so good they're just on overload and they haven't had any time to just even think about what life can offer because they're just really trying to get through the days. They're trying to get through all of the orders. They're trying to get through all of the emails and the callbacks and everything. What would you say? Like, I'd love for you to just speak life into them as we close this podcast up.
I think what's most valuable that I've learned is the impact that small bits of time can have. I talk with people who honestly are kind of what I consider kind of crazy people who get up at like 4 a.m. and spend 2 hours getting into their day. I am not that type of person. And oftentimes we get caught up because, we look at these miracle morning things and we think, I don't have 2 hours to spend getting into this. The most valuable lesson I learned in my personal journey was I can dramatically change my outlook and my happiness through very small and what seemed to be individually insignificant acts. But it only takes 30 seconds to maybe write down 1 to 3 things that you're grateful for every single morning. But man, the impact is big. It doesn't take long of a walk. You go out and have a 5-minute, 10-minute walk, get outside, get out back to an outdoors environment where you can kind of just breathe and think. It doesn't take long to have an impact. It doesn't take long to have an impact in terms of just taking a few deep breaths, box breaths, where you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, pause for 4. It only takes 4 of those before you really start to feel a change in who you are. Take, one handwritten card a week to express gratitude to somebody who's impacted your life has a quick impact. So some people get hung up because they are chasing, and just grinding until they're ground down.
Yeah.
But to just take 5-10 minutes every day, just to do something you love, just do something just because it's fun. I watch almost no TV, but when I do, it's usually an episode of some comedy show just because it's fun. And so I would encourage people to take advantage of and find value in 10 minutes of really intentional time around whether it's getting outdoors, meditating, writing down things they're grateful for, just doing puzzles because you love to do puzzles, just do something of joy every day, and don't discount that it can be done in small blocks of time.
Good. I love it, man. That was wonderful. Jason, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your heart today. It has been a pleasure to have you on the podcast, and super grateful for having you take some time.
Yeah, great to be here.
All right, you guys. Hey, listen, as you well know, we so appreciate you. And you know that, listen, the only cost for this podcast is to share it. Get it in the hands of somebody that needs to hear from Jason. Maybe they just have had a hard time overcoming the setbacks. Maybe they've had a hard time facing those goals that they know that they want to achieve. And what a great podcast to listen to help motivate them to find the fun side of creating habits in your life. As always, we appreciate you, absolutely love you, and have a fantastic rest of your day.